Should they be getting a larger share of the revenue in the WNBA?
Because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making. And yes, I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it.
A bitter civil war is brewing. It's a battle being fought not on the court, but in boardrooms and across social media. A fight over money, power, and respect.
They decided to clap back on their Instagram account to Adam Silver's "We call BS and we see you." It's like, I don't understand what posting this does besides stir up more drama.
And it was all ignited by 10 simple words from the most powerful man in basketball. The stage was set against a backdrop of unprecedented growth, largely fueled by what has been dubbed the Caitlin Clark effect. The 2024 season saw record-breaking television ratings, merchandise sales soared, and arenas across the country were consistently sold out. With the league's collective bargaining agreement set to expire, the players felt they had more leverage than ever before. Then, on October 21, 2025, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver appeared on NBC's Today Show to discuss the upcoming NBA season. The conversation turned to the WNBA, and he was asked a direct question: should WNBA players get a larger share of their league's revenue? His answer was a masterclass in diplomatic deflection that landed like a declaration of war. Silver stated, "I think share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers. They are going to get a big increase and they deserve it." On the surface, it sounded reasonable, a promise of a big increase in pay. But to the players and their union, the WNBA, those 10 words, "share isn't the right way to look at it," were a public and direct rejection of their single most important demand. For months, the WNBA had made its primary goal crystal clear. They wanted to fundamentally change the WNBA's economic model to mirror the NBA's, where players receive a percentage of all basketball-related income, roughly 50%. This revenue-sharing model ensures that as the league grows, player compensation grows with it. Silver's comment dismissed this core principle entirely. He was attempting to frame the entire high-stakes negotiation as a simple discussion about a pay raise, a debate over absolute numbers rather than a revolutionary shift in the league's financial structure. This wasn't just a negotiation tactic, it was a strategic move to control the future. The league's offer of a big increase, with a supermax salary approaching $850,000 and a minimum around $300,000, looks like a massive victory compared to the current supermax of about $249,000. However, this offer exists in a vacuum that ignores the league's explosive trajectory. The WNBA's new media rights deal, set to begin in 2026, will quadruple its annual revenue to over $200 million. A fixed salary, no matter how high it seems today, will not scale with that future income. If league revenues double again in 5 years, player salaries would remain stagnant under the league's proposal. A revenue share, however, automatically ties player pay to that meteoric rise. Silver's absolute numbers proposal was a calculated play to offer a short-term win for the players while ensuring that the owners and the NBA itself would capture all of the massive financial upside expected in the coming decade. It was a move to permanently cap labor costs just as the business was about to explode. Adam Silver's comments weren't just a negotiating stance delivered behind closed doors, they were a grenade thrown into the public square. The WNBA Players Association could have responded with a formal press release or a quiet counteroffer. Instead, they chose to fight back on the one battlefield where power dynamics are flattened and every voice can be amplified: social media. The response was immediate, viral, and deeply personal. The WNBA's official Instagram account posted a story featuring the clip of Silver's interview. Overlaid on the video was a sarcastic, cutting caption that tagged the commissioner directly. "Don't want to share. @Adam Silver NBA." This was not a carefully worded corporate statement, it was a direct public challenge aimed at the man in charge. It was a signal that this negotiation would not be conducted in the shadows. That single post opened the floodgates to a war of words. The WNBPA's executive director, Terry Jackson, followed up with a formal statement, accusing the league of attempting to run out the clock on negotiations and pushing a financial model that intentionally undervalues the players. The league office promptly fired back, calling the union's claims incorrect and surprising, and labeling their public statements frustrating and counterproductive. In its defense, the WNBA claimed it had offered an uncapped revenue-sharing model that was directly tied to the league's performance. However, the devil was in the details. The union argued that the league's uncapped offer was merely a repackaging of the same flawed system from the current CBA. That system stipulates that revenue sharing only begins after the league achieves certain ambitious revenue targets, targets that have never been met in the history of the agreement. Furthermore, the players contend that the model excludes critical revenue streams, effectively limiting what they can share in. Terry Jackson bluntly described the league's proposal as a plan that only includes a piece of the pie and pays themselves back first. It was, in their view, a system designed to create the illusion of partnership without the reality of it. This public back and forth marked a critical shift in strategy. Historically, labor disputes are won by controlling the public narrative, and owners have often succeeded by painting players as greedy for demanding more money. By taking their fight to social media, the WNBPA bypassed traditional media gatekeepers and presented their case directly to a rapidly growing and highly engaged fan base. The "Don't Want to Share" post was simple, powerful, and perfectly tailored for the digital age. In contrast, the league's response sounded defensive and corporate. At a time of peak cultural support for women's sports, the players successfully framed the debate not as a simple pay dispute, but as a moral fight for fairness, equity, and respect. They weren't just negotiating a contract, they were waging a highly effective public relations campaign, and they were putting the league's billionaire owners on the defensive. Every war needs a villain, a face to represent the opposition, and as the players took their fight public, they strategically put a face to their frustration. It wasn't Adam Silver, the powerful but distant NBA commissioner. It was their own leader, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. The players' public statements revealed that Engelbert wasn't just a pawn caught in a larger game. She had become a primary target. The turning point came during a season exit press conference, where Minnesota Lynx star and WNBPA Vice President Napheesa Collier delivered a bombshell. It was not an impromptu rant, it was a prepared 4-minute statement meticulously crafted for maximum impact. Collier detailed a series of shocking private conversations she claimed to have had with Engelbert, painting a picture of a leader completely disconnected from her players. According to Collier, when she raised concerns about inconsistent officiating, Engelbert's alleged response was, "Only the losers complain about the refs." When Collier advocated for higher rookie salaries for phenoms like Caitlin Clark, who were driving massive revenue, Engelbert allegedly retorted, "Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 to $60 million off the court because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything." Perhaps most damningly, regarding the new media deal that Engelbert had secured, Collier claimed the commissioner told her that players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. Collier concluded her statement with a devastating final blow, declaring that the WNBA has the best players in the world and the best fans in the world, but right now we have the worst leadership in the world. The comments sent shockwaves through the sports world. Engelbert later issued a statement denying the specific quotes, calling them inaccuracies, and saying she was disheartened by the public attack. But the damage was already done. The players had successfully personalized the conflict. Engelbert now finds herself trapped in an untenable two-front war. Her primary duty is to the team owners and the NBA, who control the league and effectively serve as her bosses. She is tasked with executing their financial strategy, which, as Silver's comments made clear, is to resist a true revenue-sharing model. This is immense pressure from above. At the same time, her role as commissioner requires her to be a steward of the game and maintain a functional, trusting relationship with the players. Collier's public evisceration, which was quickly supported by other stars, demonstrated a complete and catastrophic collapse of that trust. This is immense pressure from below. She cannot satisfy the players without defying her bosses, and she cannot appease her bosses without further alienating the very athletes she is supposed to lead. By making Engelbert the public face of the owner's perceived greed and disrespect, the players have isolated her and turned a business dispute into a vote of no confidence in her leadership. While commissioners and players traded blows in the media, the true source of their power and their conflict wasn't even in the room. She was on the court, shattering records, selling out arenas, and single-handedly rewriting the economic reality of women's basketball. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and her unprecedented success has become the central paradox, tearing the entire league apart. The Caitlin Clark effect is not a media narrative, it is a quantifiable economic phenomenon. Her WNBA debut was the most watched league game in over 2 decades. The WNBA draft, where she was the first pick, drew a historic 2.45 million viewers. Her impact on attendance was even more staggering. Teams began moving their home games against her Indiana Fever to larger NBA arenas to accommodate the overwhelming demand. The Washington Mystics drew over 20,000 fans for a game against the Fever, the highest attendance for a regular season WNBA game in history. Her Her Indiana Fever jersey sold out in less than an hour after the draft. The financial implications are monumental. One finance professor from Indiana University estimated that Clark was directly responsible for more than 25% of the entire league's revenue in 2024, and that her presence alone could push the WNBA's total valuation over $1 billion. This data has become the ultimate weapon in the CBA war, and both sides are wielding it to their advantage. Their argument is simple. Look at these numbers. The league is exploding in value, and we are all part of this incredible growth. We deserve a share of the revenue we are helping to create. They see the Clark effect as the crest of a wave that is lifting the entire sport, and they want a contract that reflects this new reality. The owners, however, are using the exact same data to make the opposite case. Their counter-argument, echoed in Silver's focus on absolute numbers, is that this isn't sustainable league-wide growth. It's a temporary bubble created by one transcendent superstar. They argue that they cannot fundamentally restructure the league's entire financial model based on a single, potentially fragile anomaly. Their unspoken message is, take Clark out of the equation and the record-breaking numbers collapse. Caitlin Clark has therefore become both the players' ultimate leverage and the owner's perfect excuse. Without her, the players' argument for a revolutionary pay structure would be significantly weaker. Her success provides the hard evidence of the league's massive commercial potential. Yet, by attributing all of that success solely to her, the owners can conveniently dismiss the contributions of every other player. It allows them to frame the boom as an isolated event rather than a systemic tide. Clark has unintentionally become the central bargaining chip in a high-stakes game she isn't even publicly playing. Her historic rookie season is the key that could unlock a transformative deal for all players, but it's also the very lock the owners are using to keep the vault of shared revenue sealed shut. For decades, the owners' argument against raising player pay has been brutally simple. We can't pay you more because the league loses money. It's a line that has been repeated in every CBA negotiation, a narrative of financial struggle used to justify a system where players receive less than 10% of league revenue. But if the WNBA is so unprofitable, a central mystery has emerged. Why are billionaires lining up to pay $250 million just for a seat at the table? This long-standing narrative of unprofitability is now clashing violently with the league's current financial reality. The evidence of a massive financial boom is undeniable. First, there is the new media rights deal. Starting in 2026, the league's 11-year agreement with Disney, Amazon, and NBC Universal will bring in at least $200 million annually, a staggering 250% increase over the previous deal. Second, franchise valuations are skyrocketing. The New York Liberty recently sold a minority stake at a record-setting $450 million valuation. Forbes estimated that the Indiana Fever, once an afterthought, are now worth $370 million, thanks in large part to Caitlin Clark. And most tellingly, there are the expansion fees. New ownership groups in cities like Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia have each paid a record-high $250 million entry fee to join the league. People do not pay $250 million to join an unprofitable venture. This raises the critical question at the heart of the labor dispute. Where is the disconnect? How can a league simultaneously claim to be losing money operationally while its core assets are being valued in the hundreds of millions? The answer likely lies in the world of creative sports accounting, where the distinction between annual operational profit and long-term asset appreciation is everything. An owner can claim an operational loss in a given year for tax purposes, all while the value of their franchise, their actual asset, is increasing exponentially. The players argue that they are being paid based on the former, while the owners are getting rich off the latter. To solve the mystery of the missing money and understand why the league is so resistant to change, one must follow the power. In the WNBA, that power structure is complex, opaque, and unlike any other in major professional sports. An examination of this structure reveals that the current conflict is not a simple fight between players and their team owners. It's a fight with a much bigger, much richer older brother who holds most of the cards. The WNBA's unique ownership model is the Rosetta Stone for this entire conflict. The league is not a single entity owned by its teams. Instead, it is divided into three parts. 42% is owned directly by the NBA, another 42% is owned by the individual WNBA team owners, and the remaining 16% belongs to a group of outside investors who participated in a $75 million capital raise in 2022. The implications of this structure are massive. The NBA is not merely a supportive partner, it is the single largest shareholder in the WNBA. This financial control is further consolidated by the fact that many WNBA owners also own NBA teams, including the owners of the Indiana Fever, New York Liberty, and Phoenix Mercury. This means the NBA's true influence is significantly greater than its 42% stake suggests. This ownership model completely recontextualizes the key players in this drama. Adam Silver is not a neutral mediator offering his opinion. He is the chief executive and representative of the league's most powerful ownership bloc. His words on the Today Show were not a suggestion, they were a directive from the primary financial backer. This also clarifies Cathy Engelbert's precarious position. Her power is limited because she ultimately reports not just to the WNBA owners, but to Adam Silver and the NBA Board of Governors. The WNBA's major financial decisions are in reality NBA financial decisions. This structure explains the owners' fierce resistance to a 50-50 revenue split. The NBA and its owners have subsidized the WNBA for nearly 3 decades, viewing it as a long-term investment. Now, with the league on the cusp of a financial explosion, they see an opportunity to finally reap the rewards of that investment. A fixed salary model allows them to capture the vast majority of future growth, while a revenue-sharing model would divert a significant portion of that upside to the players. It also explains the perceived lack of financial transparency. The WNBA's media rights, for instance, are bundled and negotiated alongside the NBA's massive multi-billion-dollar deals, making the true market value of the WNBA's rights an internal accounting figure rather than a number determined on the open market. The players are not just fighting their individual team owners for a bigger piece of the pie, they are fighting the entire financial might and institutional power of the NBA. With the battle lines clearly drawn, trust between players and leadership completely shattered, and the true power structure revealed, the clock is now ticking towards a dramatic conclusion. The deadline for a new collective bargaining agreement is October 31st. While a temporary extension is possible, the escalating rhetoric from both sides suggests they are digging in for a protracted battle, making a work stoppage a terrifyingly real possibility. The threat of a lockout or a player strike is no longer a distant hypothetical. Prominent players, including Angel Reese and Nafisa Collier, have publicly stated that a work stoppage is a potential outcome that the players are prepared for if their core demands are not met. They are unified and understand the stakes, viewing this as a defining moment not just for their careers, but for the future of the league. The consequences of a lockout would be nothing short of catastrophic. It would halt the WNBA's historic momentum at its absolute zenith, squandering the cultural capital and fan excitement built by the Caitlin Clark effect. A work stoppage would alienate the millions of new fans who have just discovered the league and send a message of instability to the major corporate sponsors who have recently poured record-breaking sums into women's basketball. It would be a generational failure, a fumbling of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to solidify the WNBA as a major player in the global sports landscape. For the owners, initiating a lockout presents a dangerous paradox. In a traditional labor dispute, owners can often win by financially outlasting the players. However, the WNBA's current value is tied less to its present-day profits and more to its incredible growth narrative. The league's skyrocketing franchise valuations are based on the promise of future revenue from media deals, expansion, and increased popularity. A lockout would shatter that narrative. It would signal dysfunction and risk to media partners, investors, and sponsors. The very asset the owners are trying to protect, the league's soaring valuation, would be severely damaged by the very tool they might use to win the negotiation. This creates a precarious situation where the owners hold the immediate financial power to withstand a work stoppage, but exercising that power could destroy the long-term value of their investment. This dynamic gives the players more leverage than it might appear on the surface. The owners could win the battle over revenue share percentages, but lose the much larger war by killing the golden goose just as it's about to lay golden eggs. So here we are, a league more popular and culturally relevant than ever, yet more internally divided than at any point in its history. On one side stands Adam Silver, the pragmatic guardian of the NBA's long-term investment, pushing for controlled growth and capped labor costs. On the other side are the players, united and defiant, demanding their rightful share of the empire they are building on the court every night. Caught in the middle is a commissioner, Cathy Engelbert, whose leadership has been publicly repudiated, her authority seemingly eroded from both above and below. And hovering over it all is a transcendent superstar, Caitlin Clark, whose historic talent has become the unwitting catalyst for the entire conflict. The WNBA has finally arrived as a cultural and commercial force. It is no longer a niche league, it is a mainstream phenomenon. But the very explosion of popularity that propelled its rise now threatens to tear it apart from the inside. This is not just a negotiation over salary caps and benefits. It is a fundamental fight for the soul of the league, a battle to define its future. Will this civil war forge a stronger, more equitable partnership between players and owners, setting the stage for a true dynasty? Or will it be remembered as the moment when a league, at the peak of its power, fumbled its future? The clock is ticking,